So, hello and welcome back to another episode of the Self Development with Tactics podcast. Today, we're not going to go through a new earth, even though I know that it would be beneficial, but I'm quite stressed out. I have been working and doing stuff all day long, haven't been able to kind of calm down a bit. It is this clearly is stress, and it is actually one of the reasons why I dislike client work, because I always, every single time, and I should work on that. I don't necessarily know how, but I'm gonna have to figure out. I always get really stressed out. And so I'm using this podcast and then me talking now to calm down a bit and get away from the client work. And it probably is something that a lot of people know, just being in a stressed out state and not really knowing what to do. And I always get really angry when I'm in that state, because maybe just because my body is hurting and my body's telling me like, please, motherfucker, you gotta have to just stay away from that. You gotta have to do something else, don't be in that environment. But I often find myself in that environment still, and it is fucked up. It is something I really need to work on. Also because when I'm working in a group setting or just with other people, doesn't necessarily have to be a group, also when it might be a company, and I get into that state, even though, let's talk about that later. When I get into that state, I get angry. And I also really tend to, explode quite easily, and my tone of voice isn't very nice. And I actually do not want to do this to people, no matter who it might be. I just don't want to be that asshole. I don't want to be the person that just is, pissed off all the time or whatever it might be. But something that might clearly be different when you are working for a firm, a company, or whatever, an agency. And when it comes to client work is that, of course, there's going to be a deadline, but it is quite calculated. So it's not necessarily going to be too stressful. Of course, there's going to be a ton of corrections, and it obviously also depends heavily on the client. And I therefore also have made several different experiences with that feeling and how fast it builds up and so on and so forth. And it's basically and probably it's just something that I make up, I'm stressing myself out, and I'm doing that to myself with client work. And maybe me as well, just not setting the right boundaries in terms of, if you want to have something from me, here is my number. If I reply, I reply, and I'm gonna work when I want to work. And so I obviously have to stick to that deadline. I can't be like, I just didn't want to work today, I don't want to be like that. But it is often the case, very often the case, that as a freelancer or somebody that maybe, I don't really know if I could generalize that for freelancers, but the thing with work time is I actually have to wait sometimes for the client to reply so that I can go on and work, which is a big problem. Even though it makes sense and even though it is like obvious and stuff, but and also the client not always being available and always having the time to respond to my questions and or my texts or just giving me feedback and so on and so forth, it is very difficult. It really is. Obviously when I get a reply very late, I'm not going to start working, even though it would make sense maybe. But this is not that big of a problem. It's just an additional thing, something that I also have to think about, and also have to keep in mind, like, okay, when my client needs something, I maybe should be there so that I can just do that favor, which, as I said, might be the problem of somebody who is a freelancer. Obviously, when you're working in a firm, this firm has certain times where it is open and just times where it is closed. So therefore also times where you can ask for something and times where you cannot ask for something. Therefore, which is often done in firms or agencies, you're gonna have certain timestamps where you're gonna get feedback, which might be in person, maybe not, doesn't really matter. But this makes sense. The problem is I can't do that. How should I be doing that? Like, I could, but it would make things, I think, way more complicated. Maybe I don't know, maybe I could just establish that for myself and my work. Because I want to feel good doing my work. I know that when I'm pissed off, stressed out, and feel like time is running away, and time is like just suddenly just only a fucking liquid that is running through my fingers like fucking sand. This is a fucked up feeling, always looking at the clock, knowing that I actually have to record as well, that I would have liked to do something different as well. Yeah. Additionally to that, I do always want to do great work. Whatever I do, it should be quite great. Sometimes, and this is something that I do recognize more often now, my computer is fucking me today as well. Like, I wasn't able to export something just because of my computer. And also the speed of your work, how fast you can work, how efficient therefore you can also work, highly is, you just have to have a good computer, which I'm not having at the time because of reasons, money, it's expensive and I just do not want to spend on it quite. And this is a fucked up thing and pisses me off quite a bunch. On the other hand, things that make work more inefficient is maybe, and for sure, actually, perfectionism. And me always trying to do work that I can also be proud of. The thing is, after a year, maybe even a month, maybe a week, I look back at certain works that I did and I think, well, it is actually pretty shit. Even though, when you're working on it and you're just sitting in front of it for multiple days or whatnot, then it is cool, it is great, you enjoy it, you like it, and I like the work, by the way. I do love it. There's actually two feelings that I really enjoy. The one feeling is when a client is fucking impressed by the work that you did, and the second thing is you actually moving from a pretty shitty piece, which often happens, to a pretty good one, which, as I've seen, often comes through feedback of the client, even though there is another problem of communicating thoughts and communicating, and this is heavily individual, communicating aspects of a design or aspect of a creation that should be changed or should be altered or whatever it might be. This is also something, which I can just understand. Like, sometimes you do not have the right vocabulary to express what you mean. Sometimes I just feel like, it could just be said differently and one could just be more thoughtful when saying something, because I do not always want to be like, okay, what do you mean by saying that? Maybe it is just me, maybe it's just my thought and my life or myself, who is pretty conscious of how he speaks, in German and in English, quite. I really try to express myself as clearly as I can, so that people understand what I mean. And sometimes it just needs a bunch of words to say what I mean, but that is fine. It is just difficult, and it is not a great place to be in. Also health-wise, by the way. Just being stressed out, feeling like hating everybody. I just don't like that. I really dislike that. It's like, and it's taking away so much energy from you, which I do actually often forget then. When it comes to new client work, I'm always going to be like, yeah, okay, I'm going to have a look at it. I'm going to work on it, yada, yada, yada. Because money is a thing for me, even though for what I did, I am fucking cheap. The thing is, being more expensive, charging more is really difficult, because there's always, at least for me, and I have the feeling of a very, very, very thin line of just being way too overpriced. But the thing is, I've been working on certain things, and it really takes quite a bunch of time. If I would be charging for time, which, sometimes makes sense, sometimes it doesn't, and well, actually being hourly charged by a firm that you're working at, that's quite nothing. And I always think about the fact, like, when people go to an agency, which of course they are never gonna do because they know it is fucking expensive, when they would go to an agency and see the prices they're having, they would be astonished, for what they're getting from me for a way lower price. Because thinking about the time that I spent on certain things, I shouldn't be doing that. Doesn't make any sense. Like, such a bunch of time, such a lot of time. But everything summarized and everything just put into one glass jar. I don't want to say that it really depends on the client that you're working with. Sometimes it is more difficult, sometimes it is quite easy, and also quite encouraging. Sometimes it is a bit of a drag and it is like difficult. Something as well that I would say, when you are a client, or when I am gonna be a client, something that I really wanna emphasize is pricing. And really also doing so before work is being done. I don't want to rip off anybody, and I do not want to get ripped off. Happened to me, I could have said something. But as I said, it is always quite difficult. Am I going to lose this client? There's a bunch of competition, like, am I going to lose this person? Am I going to just get rid of work? It is very difficult. Money and pricing is very, very difficult for somebody that does not have a lot of leverage, which is me. When somebody comes up to me and is like, well, do you want to work for me? Do you want to do something? Yeah, of course. Earning a bit of money, getting this, well, that's amazing. That is fine. I like that. I want to have that. But besides the fact that it is quite a bunch of work, and I just really want to do my best, it's difficult, just really difficult, and also quite often not worthwhile if you're gonna get pissed off and I don't know, like, hate your life. That's just not good. What I want to say about pricing, because I kind of slipped away, saying precisely what you are going to pay, what you are going to pay for, and also when work is done, you, the client, should be like, okay, where can I give you your money? Could you give me a bank account? I'm gonna just send it over to you. This shouldn't be the designers or what is it, kind of the opposite of client? The worker. Well, I don't know. You know what I mean. I'm gonna say the worker. The person who works should not have to ask for their money. I hate that. I hate being like, well, I haven't received my money yet. Could you please send it over? at this point in time, I do have a bit more confidence and courage to do so. You know, back in the days, I just was, I got ripped off left and right. Well, not left and right, but well, I think, I mean, a few times I really, especially in the beginning, I wasn't charging nearly enough as I should. At this point, I still think it is, well, it is fine at this point. I shouldn't be complaining. Yes, it is quite fine. You know, let's put it like that. Of course, as I said, there's always, like, in my mind, a thin line of, okay, is this person just gonna go to somebody else if they know somebody else, which I do not know. Some people just have multiple people. Some people that I've worked with and actually create something great, they didn't come back. So, like, I don't know. It is a really difficult business, and I don't really know if this is actually something that I can also tell you to do, and something that I think one should be doing. You know, I don't know if this is good for one. It really is difficult. I'm gonna end it with this. It is really difficult, and I'm gonna shower. I'm gonna try to further step away from that stressed state, and which I think one can really do by just doing something different, getting done other things, relaxing a bit, watching a YouTube video, just calming down a bit, and then focusing something different for quite some time, and then maybe getting back or maybe not getting back, just recharging. Life is fun, life is good, life should be lived. That's my thought. With that being said, bye bye.